And then go into the Katatsu too, for story times.
Toasty Bumps. What up, Internet?
Hey there, camera.
This is Bumbling Tourist.
And we're continuing the series of story time with Bumbling Tourist, where we kind of reminisce about old trips we had, where we didn't necessarily film for travel content, but we have a lot of clips, so we wanted to compile them and kind of give you a flavor of the experience.
Indeed.
And in the last episode, we talked about Hong Kong and Macau. This one is all about
Vietnam.
Which
is where we flew to next.
So we flew, from Hong Kong to Vietnam. It was during, again, Lunar New Year and what they call Tet in Vietnam. So we had some issues with the flight being cancelled and having to rebook it, and it was very expensive given the time of year, but we made it, and that's okay. It wasn't a very long flight, and we arrived in Hanoi.
I like short flights.
Yes.
It was my first time in a communist country, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I had been to China previously. I'd also been to Laos. That's communist, right?
Yes, I believe so.
I think at this point we only haven't been to Cuba or North Korea. Anyway.
I was a tiny bit nervous in the airport going through customs. It seemed very strict, and there were armed people and whatnot. And yet there's still one guy who freaked out and was yelling at them. I'm like, well,
yelling at a guy with a machine gun too. Like,
maybe you shouldn't yell at that guy.
Ahead of time, you have to get, or at least as a Canadian, you have to get a visa, and you cannot apply for it when you get there. You have to apply for it ahead of time. And you get a piece of paper, and you have to make sure you fill out your form, and you print out the paper and the form, and you get pictures, and you go to this little office that's in the airport, and you give them all your information, and then you sit there and you wait. When your thing has been dealt with, they put your name on screen, and you go up and you get your visa inside your passport. We had somebody meeting us from the hotel to pick us up, which normally I don't arrange that type of thing, but given that it was my first time in Vietnam and I was a little bit nervous about how things worked there, I thought it would be best if we paid to get the ride from the airport. I remember being in that cab as we drove to downtown Hanoi, and our hotel we were staying at was in the heart of Old Town Hanoi. And I don't even know how to describe that experience. We were in the car and I thought to myself, there's no way we can see anything in Hanoi. We cannot leave our hotel. We will get killed. We'll get killed by a vehicle or a scooter or something. Because the streets are so packed with just interlaced.
And the ride from the airport to where we were staying, for some reason that particular moment during our stay in Vietnam was the most chaotic we ever saw the roads. Mm-hmm. So like
rush hour in Vietnam.
Yeah, we just happened to catch a particularly crazy moment of many crazy moments. There seemingly are no rules when it comes to driving. I guess just don't kill anyone is the driving rule, and outside of that, like stoplights and things seem very optional.
There's a main intersection right down by the lake in the center of Old Town Hanoi, and it must have like 6 intersecting streets, and there are traffic lights, but everybody just drives through, and it's like you could play waltzing music because they just do 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 do.
Yeah.
And to cross the street, you basically just go, and cars will you don't walk out in front of a speeding bus, but basically you just have to trust that cars and scooters and people will go around you.
I don't think we filmed any of the ride in.
No.
So the footage we have of traffic will be less chaotic by comparison. You'll have to take our word for it that it was.
Maybe I can find something on the internet to kind of
10 times more intense than whatever footage we have on the way in, which is our first impression of like, ooh, there's the city we're going to walk around. We're like, can you walk here? Mm-hmm. And they drove us almost all the way to I guess it's a hotel.
It was a hotel, yeah. One of the rare times we actually stayed at a hotel.
When we're pulling up, like we kept thinking like, well, this is as far as our car can possibly go because the roads are just too full of people and traffic. Like there's no way a car could drive down here. And the car kept driving down there to the point where like often in Asia, you'll see little stools and tables where people are drinking beer and eating. And like as it gets later, they sort of spread out more and more, and they'll bring out more tables and more stools to the point where roads were like completely shut off.
Yeah.
And like I assumed like, okay, at this time it must be closed to traffic, but people are like moving their beer stools just
so the vehicle can get through.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to be able to book a cruise at Halong Bay, I specifically researched hotels that would help set that up outside of the country so that we didn't have to deal with a bunch of translation and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's why we chose this place. It was all right.
Yeah, I liked it.
And they arranged all of the Halong Bay cruising, which we did the second day. So the first full day, not full, the first day we arrived at the evening in Hanoi, and then we immediately went out to try to find this bar. But that first night, we set off on an adventure to find specifically a bar that you thought you were going to perform at. We tried to contact them ahead of time online.
Yeah, through Facebook.
It ended up being amazing, regardless though.
Yeah.
You met up with a really cool crew of people and the kind of, I don't know, what would you call that scene? Hip-hop scene, I guess, yeah. Of
break dancers and DJs, and shout out to Slows.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
It was a magical first introduction to Vietnam.
Yeah.
I was a bit nervous about staying out late because we just didn't really know how the country worked, so I did make us leave a little bit early, and I think perhaps you're a bit sorry about that. And I'm sorry, but it was a great experience.
What it is.
I enjoyed it.
I've done everything I could to perform places we go. Maybe that's its own series sometime, where I talk about everything that can go wrong with trying to book a show or play an open mic in a foreign country.
But on to the next day in Vietnam, we woke up super early and jumped on a tiny little van and took I think it was about a 3-hour drive to Halong Bay from Hanoi. But we were in this tiny little minivan, maybe 8 to 10 seater. And along one of the truck stops, we went in and we bought a face mask, which is our first experience with face masks. Now we're very familiar with them.
Yeah. I never thought in that moment that that's something I would have a ton of back in Canada. And now we're wearing face masks every single day. Yeah, my nose was running like crazy and I was coughing. And I felt very bad about being in a tiny little bus with like 3 couples and like... Yeah. I didn't want to make them sick. I would feel so guilty because being sick on your holiday, on your vacation is not a good time. No.
We arrived at Halong Bay. They gave us a little welcome you drink thing, and then we got on this boat with, I'd say maybe 6 other couples or groups of people. I think there were maybe 6 to 8 rooms on this boat, tiny little boat. People from Australia, people from America, people from, there were some couples from Germany, British couple. And yeah, that was really cool. I wish you would have felt a little bit better. The room was really neat. We were down on the lower level and we had our window just looked out, obviously, to basically a little balcony walkway where you could look out at the water.
Yeah. I was getting over my illness during this trip, the boat trip specifically. I didn't want to miss too much, so I basically had to get better. And it's funny what mind over matter can kind of make you accomplish.
The meals were super cool. I think we have some
amazing.
pictures and videos of that.
Hopefully the disco pineapple?
The disco pineapple. Yeah, there was a lot of fish options because I don't eat meat. Thankfully, a lot of it was fish, so I didn't have too big of a problem with that.
All of the views of the little island things floating by were amazing.
A couple of excursions too.
Kayaking.
We went kayaking.
Exploring caves.
You could go jellyfish fishing.
I slept through that.
At night, there was Tai Chi on the deck in the morning.
I slept through that.
Yeah.
But every time there was like, I don't know. I was less interested in those than kayaking and the cave exploration. And also we went to the beach too. I even forced myself to swim despite the abnormally cold year that it was.
It was a ridiculously cold year, like record-breaking. We forgot to mention this about Hong Kong, but when we were there, apparently it snowed right before we arrived, which is the first time it snowed there in like a century. It was so cold in Hanoi while we were there too that right before we arrived, there's 2 ancient turtles that live in the middle of this lake in the middle of the city. One of them died from the cold. So it was like, I think 14 degrees when we were in Halong Bay, and we forced ourselves to get in the water like the true Canadian adventurers we are. You'll get to do the polar dip, but I will make you do it.
The first day was relatively warm. But yeah, then
it was chilly.
The second day got pretty cold. I was still wearing shorts, I think.
Yeah, but I'm glad we did it, because when are you going to be back in Halong Bay?
Yeah.
It was a great experience, and I think the whole thing, like, we paid for it through the hotel. I think it ended up costing us about $200 American for both of us, but that's the drive, all the food, all the excursions, the accommodation, everything.
Yeah.
So not bad.
And it's just so beautiful. There's nothing quite like it. Yeah, I can't wait to see Vietnam again.
Somewhere I would definitely think about living for the long term. So from Halong Bay, we headed back to Hanoi, where we had a complete day to explore Hanoi. And it's a great city. We went to all the main sort of sites. We tried fancy coffee. I remember there being people burning garbage in the streets. That was alarming. Like, you'd step around a corner and there's a little fire, like, in the ditch. And you'd have to make sure you don't burn your feet. We saw one of those water puppet dance performance things. Super loud. Puppet show thing. That was neat.
Remember that little bonsai tree display?
Yeah, that was
thing?
the same temple.
Yeah.
I saw the puppet thing.
I thought that was like an old palace or something.
I think it was like an old fort, maybe. Let you know what it is on the screen because we're stupid and bumbly.
Yeah, again, all these clips, for the most part, were shot for me to make rap videos with. So if I'm going like in everything we're showing, then that's fine.
Yeah, so I think we should probably end this off here and make this a 2-parter because it's going on pretty long.
Yeah.
So in the next part, we head down to more of the mid-section of Vietnam and Hoi An. We head to Hoi An and Danang. So yeah, thanks for watching this first part.
Yeah, cheers to you, camera.
Yeah, with our Japanese viewers.
Subscribe and like and nothing else. Bye!